If you want to learn more about gratitude and how you can use it to change your life, keep on watching. Good morning and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about gratitude and how it has changed my life. And I don't mean that dramatically, I mean genuinely has changed the way I live, the way that I work, and how I carry myself in my everyday life. So I think to begin with, it's important to talk about why I need gratitude and where this all started. So we already know a bit about my background, from glandular fever to DVTs at 22 and really struggling with my own health physically. From there, I had a lot of mental health issues and became very anxious. And as a type A person, when you become anxious and overwhelmed, you start to become very depressed because you can't accomplish the things that you feel like you should be accomplishing. So during this time of depression and anxiety, I spent a lot of time struggling to get out of bed, struggling to get to work, struggling to get all of the jobs done that I felt like I could never do well enough. And to be honest, it's really hard for me to talk about even now because it's such a shameful period in my life. And it wasn't until I started to practice gratitude in my life that I started recognizing the things that I needed to change and the ways that I needed to change my life. I feel really awkward talking about this because I really don't share these sorts of things with anybody, but I think it's so important to share this and to actually talk about it because it's okay to not be okay, and it isn't a shameful thing to suffer from mental health issues. But even then, even in saying that, it's something that I'm really trying to work on and share more of. So anyway, I started practicing gratitude for the things that I had and really taking care to recognize the things to be grateful for in my everyday life. And once I started that, my whole life started to change. I started to think about the positives in my life instead of the negatives. And I started to actually try to incorporate more positives into my life to fill those gaps and to fill that need for gratitude. You start feeling like you need to be grateful and you need to find things to be grateful for, which is really cool. Once I found those things to be grateful for, I incorporated more and more of them into my life so that I got that rush of gratitude over and over again. And so that when I spent time thinking about it, I was able to actually pinpoint multiple things to be grateful for every day, rather than being in a pity party all day, thinking about how hard my life was and there was nothing exciting for me to do or nothing to look forward to. So nowadays, I am much better, suffering many less anxiety attacks and actually feeling confident that I'm going to get out of bed every morning. But it's still important to use those techniques that I've found throughout the years to ensure that I don't slip down that slide back into depression and constant anxiety. In particular, I find that I need to practice gratitude at specific times of the day, around about 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I start to get really tired. I find myself starting to become overwhelmed by those negative thoughts of things aren't working well, it's not coming easy to me, I have to work so much harder, so it mustn't be the right thing that I'm actually needing to be doing. And it even brings on negative thoughts about how stuck I am doing boring things rather than out. And it's even harder during this time because of the self-isolation, when we're stuck inside not even getting to go out and do the boring things that we get to do. So we don't even get to go out. Another time that I really need to be using my gratitude is when I start to have anxiety. So when things aren't going well and I start to feel that panic, it's important for me to make sure that I take the time to practice gratitude for the things that I'm doing and even take time away from it and do something else that I can find gratitude in to then come back to do that task. The other time that I really need to be using gratitude is when things go wrong. And this is something to do with resilience, which, if you watched my video a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how one of my new goals is resilience. And this is exactly what that is. When things go wrong, you're able to bounce back, you're able to see the positives and not just wallow in that self-doubt, self-pity, and really move on from it and not get stuck in it for your day. I find that last one is really the hardest one to do, and I'm really working on trying to make that bounce back time much more minimal. I still think it's important to feel your feelings, because if something goes wrong, it's important that you get to be sad about it or angry about it, but then you can move on and still get on with your day. So I wanted to share my top 3 techniques about how I used gratitude on the daily to help with my mental health. So the first technique that I wanted to share is gratitude journaling. I love to write. It makes me feel so good, and I really enjoy the feel of a pen against paper. So gratitude journaling is a really great one for me. You can do it just with any old scrap of paper, any cheap notebook, anything like that. But there is something really special about using a journal purposely for gratitude. The gratitude journal that I use is from I Am Happy I Am Here, and it uses prompts to help you with your gratitude. I shared this one over on my Instagram the other day, and this is the book that I use. It's a beautiful fabric covered book, and I love it. So this is the book, and I'll just open up to an empty page. Each page has the date on it and some prompts to start you with your journaling. So every morning, as part of my morning routine, after I've woken up and gotten dressed and put on my makeup, I go in and I write in what I wake up grateful for. Sometimes I'll use a prompt for this, or sometimes I'll just use whatever comes to my head. The second thing that we have is our Today I Will. So there's two options that I currently use for this. Usually I will do this as a written response, things for motivation, things for inspiring me to continue and work my hardest for the day. And then sometimes I'll actually just write a list in here of jobs that I want to be able to tick off. And then at the end of the day, I do reasons today was great. And this ties in with my second technique, but I add in here a list of 3 things, and I'll share a little bit more information about this a little bit later when I get onto my second technique. The last thing that I talk about here as I'm going to bed is the thought that I go to bed with. I love this one because usually I'll start with a quote and then I'll go on and expand that into the thoughts that I have that go with that quote. So let me show you an example. Yesterday, I added this entry, and the reason for this was because I actually went to sleep and I woke up cold, even with my blanket on, and went straight to the cupboard and got another blanket. And I just thought how blessed we are that I'm able to just go and warm myself up when so many other people can't. For my Today I Will, I used some terminology that really inspired me. Things like smashing out, checking off, those sorts of things that inspire me to get my jobs done. I talk about the reasons why today was great, which, as I said, I'll talk about a little bit later. And then thoughts I go to bed with. There is no finish line. And I think that's a really important one. I'm really trying to focus on the journey of life and not just getting to the end result all the time. Trying to enjoy the path that takes to get there and not just rush it. So, since I bought my book from I Am Happy I Am Here at the end of last year, there have been new versions released. So it'd be really interesting to see the different prompts, and I know that there's some awesome discounts. So have a look at this information down the bottom here. This is all of the details for the lovely woman who does I Am Happy I'm Here. I really recommend checking her out because some of the other products that she has as well are incredible, and I also use, but I will show you them in another video. The second gratitude technique that I use in my daily life is my nightly 3. And what I mean by nightly 3 are finding 3 things every day that I am grateful for that I can share with Marty, and he can share his with me. I was planning on filming us and actually showing you the ones that we did tonight, but I've kind of decided that I really, by 9 o'clock, I'm just going to want to go to sleep and not be filming in bed, so sorry. But what I will do is I'll share my ones from last night and give you a bit of an idea on how we do this and why it works for us. So here we are back to reasons today was great. And here are my nightly 3. So I was really proud of my work ethic yesterday. I got so many jobs done. I really was grateful for the family time that we're lucky enough to have, and actually for that really beautiful handwriting. Anyway, really grateful for family time. We were spending time playing games, watching movies with my mum, seeing family, and I am so grateful for that, especially now that we've moved down to Brisbane. And the third thing that I was really grateful for is slower pace. I find that now that we're in isolation, I don't feel like I have to get everything done all at the same time. I feel like I've got a little bit more time to think about what I really want to be doing and spend the time doing that. Things like this YouTube, things like my uni. And so even though I don't feel like I'm moving forward in my life, I still am. I feel like one of the best parts about the nightly 3 is that it gives me an opportunity to connect with Marty and hear about the reasons that his day was good as well. And it's a really nice way to then go from how was your day to why was your day great? Why was your day exceptional? What parts of your day were just... Sorry. But seriously, it's so nice to actually hear about the good things rather than I went to work, it was a big day, I'm now tired. And I think that it's created a really deeper connection with Martin and I because I do get to hear about his day. And especially when we're not spending a lot of time together, it makes a big difference to actually hear about what was really good for him. We always try to make sure that we don't use the same things. Sometimes we'll use similar things because we're doing things like on the weekend, but usually we'll try to find things that are not exactly the same so we're not just parroting back what the other person said. One other key tip that I wanted to share about this is that you don't always have to go first. Marty and I alternate so that we both get a chance to go first, we both get a chance to say the things that we want to say, and sometimes we'll expand on them and explain why we think that's great, or sometimes we'll just say it. We'll say, I'm really grateful because I had family time today, and that can be enough. So it doesn't have to be a massive production. So the final tip that I wanted to share about a technique that I use for gratitude is calendars and to-dos. And I know that this probably sounds a little bit like anti-gratitude, but having things planned out makes it so much easier to be able to look forward to things that you can be grateful for. When I was my most depressed, I really needed this to be able to help me to get out of that. I needed things to look forward to so that rather than just being grateful for what I had, I was actually actively seeking that gratitude. I was actively seeking special things for me to do with my family, by myself. So it's a little bit more difficult now that we're in self-isolation and we can't go out and do things. But even now, I'm still finding things to be grateful for and making sure I have them. And they don't have to be different things each day. They can be the same thing every day. So, for example, Marty and I have morning tea together. It's 15 minutes where we chat, we eat something nice, and we get to enjoy time with each other. And because Marty's normally at work, I never usually get this time with him. So it's a really special thing for me every single day that I get to be grateful for. And part of the reason it's so good is that we get to sit outside on the veranda, which we don't really have in our home in Brisbane. So even just the act of being outside is really special for us. So having those daily things is so important, and it can tie in with your nightly 3 and your gratitude journal. Each of these things don't have to be by themselves solid things, because that just makes it way too much work. You can see how each of these 3 techniques all tie in together so that I don't have to do any more work, but I get 3 times the gratitude. As I just showed then, my nightly 3 is in my gratitude journal, and part of those nightly 3 are the actual things that you put in your calendar or to do for that day that you can be grateful that you've achieved or that you've been a part of or that you've experienced. And I think the main thing that I want to share is that gratitude isn't meant to be hard. Gratitude should feel as easy as breathing. You should be able to feel grateful for everything in your life, but especially when you're anxious, especially when you're depressed, tired, exhausted, things are going wrong, it's so much harder to do that. So it's easier if you have these sorts of techniques or programs in place so that you don't even have to think about it, you just do. So honestly, these 3 tips have changed my life. I know what it's like to be so depressed that you can't get out of bed in the morning. I know what it's like to be so anxious that you can barely breathe. But having this sort of gratitude in your life will change your life. It will help you to find the positives in your life. And as corny as it sounds, find that silver lining in every situation that you have. I used to be derailed by the smallest of inconveniences, and now I'm starting to be able to bounce back from them much, much quicker. So if I can do it, you can do it. As I said earlier, it's really hard for me to talk about these things, but I think that if no one talks about it, and if I can't talk about it, how can I expect anyone else to talk about theirs or to move through their difficulties? I'm going to be sharing on my Instagram, _Catherine_. So if you want to check any of my gratitude on there, I have a highlight reel. And if you're interested, leave a comment below. I would love to have some more ideas for how to show gratitude and different techniques that you guys use. Next week's video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a try mindfulness. If you're interested, you can watch me trying that out. And I mean, if it involves chocolate, I think you might want to try it too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.